Okay, well, today is going to be a good one. I kind of get this one a lot, and I think it's fair to say that I think we all have these mistakes, and I want to share those with you today because it's important, I think, to learn from other people's mistakes so that you don't repeat them, and more importantly, to reflect upon why those mistakes occurred in the first place. And so what I want to do is share over my 15 years of experience in the stock market, and also in various other financial instruments such as cryptocurrencies, what those rookie mistakes are. Now here's the thing, guys. These mistakes that I made have occurred over the span of about 15 years or so. So I'm going to use crypto as an example right now because that's something that you guys can kind of relate to. But the mistakes I've made have been very similar to what I've done. Lately, I have made some mistakes, and I'll admit that. My portfolio is, although it was up 33% this past month, there have been several instances where I had to get out of positions, and even though last month was a positive overall, I do feel that there were some mistakes I made. But the important thing is that number one is I learned from it, and number two is that I kept those mistakes small. Okay, all right. So I put down here that we all have to pay our dues at some point, right? It's going to cost you. It's basically a learning curve, and for me, it was kind of like when I first started, it was like this. I was losing money left and right, and then once I started to look at my analysis, it began to kind of plateau, and that's okay. I did still have losers because I can't predict future prices. Nobody can. If somebody tells you that Litecoin is going to go to $100, I mean, I think that's a bunch of garbage because you can't tell. I mean, it's $100 sounds nice. I wish I could predict prices. I wouldn't be here if I could predict prices. But you don't want to do that. Okay. So anyway, here we go. First mistake I made, and this was back probably in the .com era, and actually recently with some of the altcoins, is over trading. Okay. Now this one I really emphasize. I put it as my number one because literally it sits at number one. This actually goes by order of how much money it cost me, and over trading is probably one of the worst ones. The first thing, the reason why I think it's over trading is because there's two things that contributed to that over trading. Number one is called FUD, and you guys probably heard about it before. Someone did a really great acronym for this called fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And the reason why I say that is because when I was entering in positions, especially when I first started with crypto, probably sometime last year, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I mean, literally, I was just like going on YouTube like you guys are and trying to find stuff, find someone who knows what they're doing, and trying to see what they're doing, and then all of a sudden, you know, buying some coins. The problem was that I was afraid. I was afraid of what was going to happen tomorrow. I was afraid of the government regulations. I was afraid if they were going to close my account. I was afraid if this thing was real. And what happened was I started exiting positions quickly. And I took losses because I was over trading. I was buying Bitcoin. I was selling Bitcoin. I was buying Ethereum, selling Ethereum. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was like a chicken with his head cut off. And I was really running in fear. I couldn't sleep at night because I had money on the line and I didn't know if this thing was legit. And so I heard about Bitcoin, but you know, I was like, is this for drug dealers and criminals and all that? So I ended up losing a lot of money in commissions. And so that really cost me a lot in the short term. And I also ended up taking losses. The other one is FOMO, also called fear of missing out. I was looking on the news. I was going on CoinDesk.com. I was going on CNBC trying to find out what the hottest thing is. And when I hear people talking about Bitcoin, I was like, all right, let's go buy. And I was buying at the wrong times. I was buying when the prices were like here. And then all of a sudden, everything went down. It was like the whole world was going against me. And for some odd reason, I felt like the higher power, somebody was looking at my trades and saying, whenever you buy, this thing is going to tank. And so I ended up exiting at a loss. The other one is my holding period. Because of that, my holding period is really short. We're talking about days and hours. I literally was buying, and then I couldn't sleep. You know, I literally was thinking about Bitcoin. And I ended up just kind of exhausting myself in that process. And more importantly, the last one, overtrading, was really caused by trying to get rich quick. I mean, I was thinking to myself, I was like, maybe I can make $1,000 tomorrow. Man, I would really quit my job for $1,000. And so I was trying to get these high momentum companies in. And the example I like to give here is this one. This is actually Ethereum, and I chased Ethereum, I mean, to be honest with you, when it first started. And I wasn't holding Ethereum. I mean, I was buying right here, I was buying right here, I was buying right here, and all of a sudden the thing would tank. And when I bought this and the thing would tank, I would be like, God dang it, you know, Ethereum, what a piece of crap. You know, people were talking about like if it were good, and then I would exit and I would say, you know, I'm never going to invest in Ethereum ever again. And next thing you know, the thing took off. And so I was like, oh, please shoot me already. So, and later on, I found out that it really wasn't. It was really because I was trading on news. I was trading on what people were talking about. And now I finally stabilized my mental self, and I started to think back about how to not do that anymore. The other one is cutting losers. This is actually a huge one. Here's an example of Digibyte. I went ahead and bought Digibyte before I exited. That's why it's not one of my core holdings, because I actually took a hit on Digibyte at some point. And so what had happened was Digibyte was, and I actually lost about a couple of dollars on it. And I didn't put it in my portfolio just because the holding period was really short. So I mean, even though I took a hit on it, it was probably a small amount. So it, you know, I didn't feel like I should have put it. But anyway, Digibyte was one of those where the loss of 25%, so not cutting the losses. So at that time when the news broke, I was kind of buying Digibyte right here, and then I didn't know where to go from that, and I really wasn't paying attention to the charts. And I did the analysis on Digibyte, honestly, but I did a video on it because I was kind of looking at the FOMO on that one. And so after I did the video, I was asking myself the question. It was like, yeah, should I get in? Should I not get in? And so I eventually cut the holding out, but it was actually a loss of 25%, and you know, and it was actually not that much. So if it looks like I didn't cut that losers, I should have cut it a little longer when Digibyte actually went down. So not cutting the loss is actually important. I mean, if I actually had a loss of 5% at some point, and I knew deep down that that Digibyte trade should not have been done at some point, and I took that 5%, instead of turning that 5%, it turned into a 25% loss. Eventually I cut it. So in terms of that's basically one of the reasons why Digibyte was unfortunately not one of those profitable. Had I cut Digibyte earlier, my dollar amount in the portfolio would have been a lot higher. The other one is chasing momentum. Again, this is actually Digibyte here is basically the same idea, is buying at the top and using news as a way to do investments. So let me give you an example. Digibyte really, when it ran up in early June, it was on the news that it was going to go to that Citibank piece, and it was going to be a finalist and whatnot. And what I didn't really read about was that I was going on YouTube and I was typing, you know, looking at this, and this thing was like popping. And I was like, oh man, I got to get into that, because if they do win and if they don't, what's going to happen? And so I said, you know what, screw it, let's just go into get Digibyte. And so at the end of the day, you know, when I was buying Digibyte, a lot of people were talking about how this is going to be a big deal. But, you know, if you do your research a little bit about the momentum for Digibyte, it was one of those that it was really news driven. So it was really had nothing to do with the fundamentals. It was more about, if Digibyte gets the Citigroup account, what's going to happen? So part of me was like, you know, it was very difficult to make that trade, because I knew it was going to go up in the short term as we led into the Citigroup. But the problem was that I was really kind of playing with fire, because number one is that it wasn't anything that would, I'd say, in the long term help Digibyte, because you were basically banking on the idea that they were going to get that Citigroup deal, and that was on the assumption that they won the finals. And so when you're reading news, all you're reading is Digibyte got a contract with Citigroup, a potential contract. So right now it's going to go to the sky. And when I did that video, I put down there to the moon, because that was basically the reflection of what the current consensus was. So I was really news driven, I think, at that point. And that's why, same thing with the Ripple trade. I think the Ripple trade for me was, and actually I posted my Ripple trade there as a loss, because I did buy Ripple after the fact, based on the banks. And so I think looking at the Ripple trade, looking at the DigiBuy trade, we're all based on momentum and we're based on news. And at that time, the news was already over. So now Ripple is kind of like, there's no more news left. So that's why it's kind of flat. And that's why I'm thinking about cutting the position. But I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm thinking of just, letting it ride for a little bit and see what happens. But okay, the other one is investing with scared money. Oh, this is a huge one. I'm gonna tell you a little story of mine, and this is actually a fairly big one. Investing with scared money really revolves around the idea that I have money that I'm not willing to part with. And here's the idea with it. In January 2017, I had $800. Okay, I got $800, and I said to myself, "Oh man, $800, it's a lot of money." And for me, it's actually quite a bit, because it's hard-earned money. I mean, literally, I work at a job that requires a lot of hours and puts a lot of time to get into. I mean, and so I said to myself, okay, I'm gonna try it out and put $800 in. And I kid you not, I was on Coinbase, and I was there, and I went ahead and placed a trade for Ethereum at 982. Okay, I bought 81 shares of Ethereum, and I was like, oh my God. Okay, so I was sitting there and I was typing this away, and I said, what is this? I saw Bitcoin, I think at that time, I forgot what it was, 1,000 or something. And so maybe a little lower, I forgot what it was. And so I said to myself, okay, I'm not going to buy Bitcoin, but I'm going to buy this Ethereum thing that I keep on hearing about. So I went ahead and bought it. I couldn't sleep that night, because I thought Ethereum, if it's 982, it must be a reason why it's so cheap. Probably it's a crapshoot. So I went ahead and sold it, probably within a couple of weeks after, still within January. As Ethereum was dropping, and I think if you check the chart, it was like, it was kind of going down it wasn't going down like in steep, but it was going down like pa 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 pa. And I asked myself the question. I was like, oh, man, this thing is like, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to go to zero. I'm going to lose all my $800. I don't know what to do. I do need this money, because I might need it to pay the bills. And why am I doing this? So anyway, it was kind of like that fear that was kind of sinking in. I kept on doubting myself. And the reason why was because I was playing with scared money. It was money that I just couldn't afford to lose. I mean, I was working overtime trying to get some money during the weekends, trying to get just kind of getting by and things like that. So I went ahead and sold it at an 8% loss. I took my money, 736. And anyway, biggest mistake ever. So if you do the math right now, you can imagine how 81 shares of Ethereum are worth. So what can I say, right? Anyway, the lesson was, don't play with scared money. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. If scared money is your tactic, you're basically going to be sweating bullets over it, and what's going to happen is you're going to end up selling, because you can't take the loss. And psychologically, it affects you, because it affected me as I was thinking about these trades. I was like, dude, I worked a lot of hours to get this $800, and for it to kind of get lost like that, I think it kind of hurt me psychologically. So anyway, long story short, don't play with scared money. It's got to be money that you don't care. All right, the next one is going to be it didn't come out good. It's going to be doing too lazy to do research and not having a system in place. So here's this one right here. Basically what it comes down to is, if you're looking at this chart here, and again, it's going to be the DigiBuy, because I keep on referring to that one. It's the fact that you're buying it on FOMO. Okay, so when you go on and you start looking at positions, and you're doing research on just news alone, and you don't have a system in place when you exit and when you enter in, what's going to happen is, if you take a look at this chart right here and you're reaching this top, you don't know what the heck you're doing. I mean, you think that's going to keep on going up. At some point it's going to come down, but even if it comes down, you don't know what's going to happen the next day. So not having a system in place numerically becomes a problem. The other one, I wasn't confident when the corrections were occurring. So what happened was, as it was correcting, I wasn't sure if my initial research was actually backed up by anything. And it wasn't, because what had happened was I just held on to it and I wasn't cutting the loss. And the last one is not knowing where the exit is. And so if you're looking at this, where I'm going to sell, where I'm going to add positions to. And so I didn't have a system in place. And what I mean by that is that if it drops down like 10-20%, are you going to buy? Are you going to sell? You got to have a system in place when you start. You can't just say, I'm going to go ahead and buy and hold and just pray that this thing goes up forever, because it's not. It's not. In fact, it's going to be anything but that. It's going to be choppy. It's going to go down. It's going to go up. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. And so what you want to do is you want to be able to objectively look at it and say, if this thing goes down 20%, I'm going to be adding. But in order to do that, you have to have a system. You have to have done your research. If you read it on Reddit and you said people are saying Digibyte's going to win Citibank, and it doesn't win Citibank, then what are you going to do? Are you going to sit on it and just hopefully that something else happens? I mean, you got to have a system in place, and that all goes back to the research I was talking about. So anyway, that's basically that part. And here's the last point I want to make, guys. The first one is investing is a game of the following. Number one, courage. The courage to hold on to positions, the courage to go in and do the legwork for it, and not being swayed for anybody to tell you one thing. Having the confidence in your investment positions. Having a convicted, basically meaning that your conviction and your fundamental analysis will keep you going. Persistence, meaning that you have to keep on being in the game and not exiting, and finding value in places where people don't find value. I think those are my top five really characteristics of what investing is. A lot of it really is about fighting with yourself. It's not about seeing who's the best investor or seeing who is the best trader. It's really about, can you battle your own emotions and keeping that level-headed mind that you have without having you talk yourself out of situations or talk yourself into really bad situations. The other one is that it's not about this one. I see this one a lot. Buying Lambos with your currency. I see these memes and I'm just like, oh wow. It's like, what Lambo are you guys gonna get after I trade out of Digibyte? And I'm just like, you're gonna buy a Lambo with your currency? Are you kidding me? You're gonna kill the capital. The other one's just being arrogant and showcasing that you made tons of money to everybody. I mean, that's just poor taste. And then the other one is about easy money, that you're gonna get rich and get paid. You're gonna get cash. You're gonna become a millionaire tomorrow. I mean, these three things. I mean, those are not gonna happen. I mean, anybody who tells you those things, honestly, I think they're delusional, or I think they're going to eventually lose all their money. And so if you're one of those three and you think that it's working out for you, I mean, mad props to you. I'm not trying to hate on anybody or say that that's not good that you can buy a Lambo, but what I'm trying to say is that it's a little bit more complicated than that. And the way you're going to get your Lambo is not by selling Digibyte, buying Digibyte, all that. It's about holding and having that conviction and adding to that position when the thing tanks, or having that persistence and adding and doubling up when you need to double up. Okay. And more importantly, about finding that value that nobody else finds and going against the trend when people are telling you otherwise. And so those are the things that I want to say. And actually, I'll be honest with you, a lot of times investing really is a lonely game, because in order for you to make money, you have to actually sometimes take the opposite end of the trade. And so what I mean by that is that people are trashing things like Ethereum Classic, and they're trashing things like Dash, right? You have to find value in those, because that's where people are not looking, right? And that's not to say, I mean, guys, that's not to say that Dash and Ethereum Classic are going to go up forever. But what I'm trying to say is that sometimes that's not going to be it's going to be commonly frowned upon. And so that's where, but fortunately for you is that that's actually where the real money's being made, and you can buy like 10 Lambos after that. Anyway, I don't own a Lambo, by the way, just to let you know. I don't, yeah. So I wish I could buy a Lambo. Anyway, all right, guys. So that's CryptoBud out here for today. And again, just a disclaimer. Again, the Digibyte trade, I was explaining to you one more time. I know some people are going to be probably telling me that you did not disclose Digibyte's trade in there. And again, let me explain about why I didn't put Digibyte in there. Because it is not one of my core holdings. I don't own Digibyte currently. I did trade it in and out. I did take a loss on it. But again, I mean, some of the stuff I trade it in and out. I mean, overall, I just do it bi-monthly anyway. So next time what I'll do is that I'll probably post some of my other bad trades that were a little larger. I just, you know, didn't have the time to go through all some of my other trades that I did and try to go figure out, you know, the percentages. I don't have time for that. So anyway, with that said, hopefully this helped out, and if you guys have any questions about it, post down below. I mean, if you have any of the rookie mistakes that I mentioned, if you notice carefully, a lot of the rookie mistakes, usually people repeat them all the time. So don't feel like that if you're doing these, you are, you know, you're the only one. And it was a very costly lesson. Okay. All right. CryptoBud out here. Have a great day. Have a great session. Don't buy Lambos. All right. Peace out.